Thank you, Zimbabwe, for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program, Agricultural New Directions in support of Vision 2030. And my name is Wadzanai Manyore. Now, you would find that in Zimbabwe, with our advancements in soybean production, most of our Zimbabwean farmers have gathered questions and are interested in the issues surrounding inoculation of soybean seed as we pave way towards achieving Vision 2030 as a country. They would like to know, is it profitable? Does it enhance your yield as our farmers here in Zimbabwe? To discuss this and more, I've taken the liberty of inviting Wendy Matashu Mazura. She's an agronomist and expert in the agricultural industry, and she's going to be taking us through the various nitty-gritties in soybean production, aligning it to inoculation before planting. Wendy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Wadzanai.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, I would like you maybe to highlight a brief synopsis of soybean production in Zimbabwe and its importance to our farming community and even the economy as a whole.
You know, that's a very pertinent question indeed. But before I get into that, allow me to congratulate you for getting an award in the National Champion Young Farmer Awards as a media personality who's really pushing for agricultural development in the country in different disciplines. I would like to just congratulate you for that.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Yes, then coming back to your question, it's very important for our farmers to understand that diversity really brings with it increased prospects of productivity for any cropping venture. So with that in mind, we have seen an increase in interest in soybean production. Why? Because our farmers are starting to appreciate that we need to be self-sufficient in terms of production of our own oil and not just import. Wadza, do you know that as a country, we need 240,000 metric tons of soybean for use in terms of stock feed, for use in terms of processing of various foods that include oil. But as a country, we are still producing a bit less than what we require. So we still need to fill that gap by making sure that our soybean farmers are achieving the highest possible yields, are doing things the right way, and are establishing the crop at the right time, which is why this is a very pertinent discussion that we are going to be having today in terms of soybean production. The other important thing is that soybean, as a crop, it tends to give us a very high oil content of above 20%, and we also find that we have protein as well that we get from soybean of above 40%, which is to say it's a nutritious crop on top of it giving us oil. And in terms of boosting the nutrition of the soil, soybean acts as a booster in terms of the inoculation of the soil. If we incorporate the residue, then it means we are also improving the structure of the soil, thereby adding to sustainability as in a bid for us to also move hand in glove with the initiatives of the whole globe to become sustainable in terms of our agriculture operations.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was very detailed. You highlighted on sustainability, and you would find that SDG number 12 on the United Nations Agenda Vision 2030 speaks and emphasizes on responsible production and sustainable consumption. Now, Wendy, I would like us to talk further and get into our discussion and align it to inoculation of soybean seed before planting it. You would find that most of our Zimbabwean farmers in seasons prior to this one, they were used to just planting their soybean without inoculating it. But now there's been calls, there's been an interest in inoculation of soybean. Can you take us through that? What is inoculation of soybean seed?
Thank you so much. So I'll break it down. Inoculation is the process whereby we are introducing foreign bacteria into the soybean crop so that the fixation of nitrogen is increased on top of what the crop as a legume is already going to do. Okay. So leguminous crops are known to fix nitrogen, and this is an added advantage which then gives our farmers a bit of comfort in terms of them not applying any fertilizer. But what we are saying is, if it's a business, you want to make sure that you are getting as much value out of your soybean crop as possible and the maximum possible yield that you can get. Okay. So by inoculating, it means you are buying and bringing in foreign bacteria that is going to add on top of the rhizobium bacteria that is already going to be there. And then it's also going to add and increase that fixation process, whereby if you get the nitrogen being fixed naturally by the soybean crop, there might not then be need for you to apply a lot of nitrogen fertilizer like your ammonium nitrate or your urea. Okay. But one thing that our farmers should understand is that the inoculation process, since we are using living bacteria, it has its do's and don'ts. Okay. So you need to understand that if you're going to use it, the bacteria needs to be kept in a place where it's going to be cool before you use it. Otherwise, you're going to denature the bacteria because they are proteins, and then you are not going going to then get the value that you expect from it. By the time you mix, you're just mixing and it's already dead, and then it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So it needs a cold chain, a bit of chilling or cooling, so that it also works optimally. Then when you are using the bacteria, you also need to make sure that you mix it at the time when you are going to establish your crop, so that you don't get into a challenge whereby if you mix it and then you don't finish planting, you want to come back again after a day or two, then it also affects the quality of the fixation that you are going to get. The other important thing that farmers should understand is that if the bacteria works, the results are going to show for themselves. Around 4 weeks there, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, when the fixation process starts, that's when you see that the crop will start turning a different shade of green, which is to say it will be entering into its vegetative stage. So if the fixation process happens the way it's supposed to, then the crop is going to turn lush dark green, which is the color that is going to also promote photosynthesis, which will give us a very good yield. But if it doesn't work, then the crop will remain palish, yellowish. It will be showing that the fixation process, something didn't go right. And sometimes you can even uproot one plant of the soybean crop, and then you can press it on the nodules, those little pimple-like nodules that will be on the roots. So you can press it with a finger, or you can cut it slightly, and then you check if the rhizobium is working. If it's working, it will give you some pinkish looking spots on the cut side of the nodule. But if it's whitish, it means it's not fixing the nitrogen for one reason or the other. What it then means is, if the crop is communicating to you that the nitrogen is not there, you then need to act. You have used your rhizobium, but it hasn't worked, but the crop still needs the nitrogen. That's when some farmers come in with about 100 to 150 kgs of additional nitrogen in the form of maybe ammonium nitrate, to make sure that they are getting the value, because this is a business. So if communication is there between you and your crop, then you can tell whether the rhizobium has worked or it hasn't. But if you follow the nitty-gritties that are needed, the rules that the rhizobium come by, then it will work. And then you also have a cost saving to it, because you are not going to then apply an expensive top dressing fertilizer. The rhizobium bacteria is only about $6 per 100 gram sachet, which is enough to treat 100 kgs of seed for 1 hectare.
Thank you so much, Wendy. That was very detailed. On that note, viewers, we're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back, viewers. We are watching Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today we are looking at soybean seed inoculation ahead of planting, the very same day that it would have been inoculated. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Leave your comments and suggestions on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We also have ongoing conversations on our Twitter handle. It's at Agribusiness 110. Now, earlier on, before into the break, Wendy was telling us of inoculation, its benefits, how it's done, and how you can see if you've been successful in inoculating your soybean seed. Wendy, we are in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Wadza. A very interesting topic indeed.
Yes. As we get into our discussion, we are joined by two gentlemen. I would like you to introduce them to our audience there at home and tell us of the process that we are going to be undergoing through before we mix this soybean seed.
So today we are at Danchi Farm in Mashonaland Central Province, where we are joined by the CEO of the organization, who is also the farm manager, the person who is behind the operations. We have Mr. Kumbirai Chinyemba. He is the gentleman, young as he is, but he is also making sure that operations are going well here at this farm. He's always here. Like we always say that the farmer's footprint is the best secret in farming. So that's Mr. Chinyemba. Then we are also joined by his manager, Mr. Mek. He is also the gentleman who makes sure that operations are done well here. So they are going to be together with us here, showing us this mixing process, the inoculation process that we want to do for soybean.
Before we start the mixing, I can see in between Kumbirai and Mr. Meki, there is sugar. I thought for some reason we are going to be having tea, but I can see there is a huge bucket, a huge tin, and in your hand you have the inoculant. Can you tell us how it's going to be done? How does it work? What's the role of sugar here with soybean and the inoculant that you're holding right now?
Thank you so much, Wadza. Yes, we are going to be having tea a bit later on, but I'm sure that is not the sugar for that. So in terms of the inoculation process, what we recommend our farmers to do is for them to understand that they need to get the correct inoculation inoculant to begin with, because there are different strains of the bacteria that fix differently for the different leguminous crops.
Okay.
So if you're going to be doing soybean, you need to specify when you're getting the inoculant that you need the bacteria, the rhizobium bacteria that is used for soybean inoculation. With that in mind, in terms of the packaging that you require 100 grams of the inoculant. 100 grams is enough for you to treat 100 kgs of seed, which is what we have put here, 100 kgs of seed. 100 kgs of seed will plant 1 hectare of soybean.
Okay.
So it's 100 grams sachet of the inoculant and 100 kgs of the seed.
Okay.
Now moving on to the sugar, which is not for tea yet. For the sugar, you need just to apply about a teaspoon or 2, and you mix that with 500 mils of water. So the sugar is meant to act as an additive that is going to stick on the soybean crop.
Okay.
So it has no other use, significant use, but it's also going to make the rhizobium stick on the soybean when you have mixed it.
Okay.
So that's the important role that the sugar plays.
Okay.
Yeah, so you need about a teaspoon to about 2 teaspoons, and then you mix with 500 mils of water. Some go to about a liter, but there's no need for you to then soak your soybean. It's just for you to mix so that there's a coat, a layer of the sugar mixed with the water that then covers the soybean before you plant.
Okay. Now, before we see this gentleman do the actual process, Wendy, how long should you take after inoculating your seed before going to the field? Do you leave it overnight to marinate? Or you have to go to the field right away?
Okay, so the recommendation again was, which is why we mentioned that this bacteria is living. So it being a living organism, you need to make sure that it's given the ideal environment. You don't want to put it in the sun for too long.
Okay.
So if you're going to treat your seed, you need to treat it in the morning when you are about to establish your crop. If you're going to use that seed, you need to use it within that day, preferably.
Okay.
What it means is if you're going to have leftover seed and use it the following day, chances are there might be some denaturation that might have happened to the bacteria.
Okay.
And you don't want that. So in terms of buying the inputs, farmers should understand that rhizobium should be the thing that they buy last. If not last, then they should buy it with the capacity to store it in a cool condition so that it doesn't become denatured before it's used.
Okay.
So that's another important thing that our farmers should understand. So they should treat seed and use it as soon as they possibly can.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I would not waste much of our time. We are going straight to see you guys mixing the sugar, the inoculant, and the water. Then we now watch you pour it upon the soybean seed and mix it together as we wait to go to the field.
So now what we are seeing here is that the inoculant has been opened and put into the bucket for mixing. Again, the inoculant is living bacteria. So we are also then going to be putting the 500 mils of water, as you can see there, and then we are going to mix it to create a paste. Then we are also seeing that the water there is going to be mixed slightly.
Okay.
As we can see there, Mr. Chinyemba is mixing.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this mixing, Wendy, just out of curiosity, our farmers might want to know, does it have to reach a paste? How do you see that I've mixed properly? How can you tell that this liquid is now appropriate? I can now pour it into does the sugar have to dissolve, or it doesn't matter that much?
Thank you so much. So it's important for the sugar to dissolve.
Okay.
Because once the sugar is dissolved, it creates a sticky paste.
Okay.
So that sticky paste is what we want, because we want the sugar to help the inoculant to be coated around the seed.
Okay.
So the farmer should mix until the sugar dissolves. As we can see there, Mr. Chinyemba is actively doing it himself there, mixing the inoculant, the water, and the sugar. And there we are seeing there are no more grains of sugar in the water. So you can then mix that in mixture, that paste, with the seed, as we are seeing there, Mr. Meki assisting him.
Now, Wendy, can you just highlight some of the tips as they are mixing that a farmer needs to take cognizance of if his seed, all of it, is going to be coated? What would you want to say? I understand that you're an expert. You have been seeing farmers do this over the years. How do you ensure that each and every seed is coated with the paste?
So it's important for us not to mix a lot of seed at once. As you are seeing here, there are some farmers who are doing about 50, 100, 200 hectares even of soybean. So the temptation is for you to just mix a lot of seed at once because you want to go into the field as soon as possible.
Yes.
But we want to encourage our farmers to mix. If you are mixing, mix at least a hectare at a time so that you make sure that at least there is adequate mixture. There is adequate contact between the inoculant and the grain. As we are seeing here, Mr. Meki can fully mix from the center of the pile right through and making sure that all the seed is coated. And once the seed is coated, one of the things that you can see is a shiny-ish change of color in terms of the grain. Where it was just a bit dull in terms of a brownish tan color, but when it's mixed, it gives you a shiny-ish color that shows that there is a bit of change that happened. And you can see there, Mr. Chinyemba is also pouring on all the sides of the pile to make sure that the inoculant reaches everywhere. We don't want to leave any seed behind. So this mixing process, its efficiency will also result in the efficiency of the inoculation that will happen in the field.
Now, Wendy, I would like you to touch briefly on the importance of inoculation as we round off this segment for our farmers there at home. What is the difference between a farmer who manages to inoculate and that farmer who just takes this seed straight to the field without inoculating? Some of the maybe the cost-benefit analysis, the advantages, the differences between those who inoculate and those that don't.
Okay, so farming is a business, Wadza. It's a formidable business. And with that in mind, every farmer should strive to increase productivity and get to the level where they increase profitability. So for you to be profitable, the cost structure should be taken into account. You need to understand where you can make a saving without compromising on the quality or the ultimate yield that you're going to get. So if you're going to be using inoculant, like we said earlier on, this 100-gram sachet, this 100-gram sachet is enough to treat 100 kgs of seed.
Which is a hectare.
Which is a hectare with this 100-gram sachet, which will cost between $5 and $7, depending on where the farmer will have bought it. So $7 is acting as an agent to introduce nitrogen in your soil at the expense of you buying a bag of nitrogenous fertilizer at a cost of above $40. So it then brings in that cost-saving element, of which that one bag, most likely if you're going to be using it, you won't use one bag. You're going to come in with about you're going to come in with about 150 to 200 kgs if you're going to be applying in your soybean. Some farmers opt for that. But if you're going to be using an inoculant, successfully adhering to the things that are recommended for you to do for it to be effective, then you are using this 100-gram sachet. This 100-gram sachet to treat 100 kgs of seed at $6 or $7, which means there's a cost saving there. Then it means also if you're going to then calculate your bottom line, guided by the yield that you're going to get, the gap is going to be big and you're also going to increase to realize higher productivity.
Finally, as we close this segment, Wendy, your word of advice to our farming community in terms of using enough and appropriate and recommended inputs for a certain space of area in the field.
Clearly, you have worked with our farmers for very long. There are people who want to make a saving sometimes at their own detriment. So it's important for them to understand that when this sachet was calculated, it was said to work on a hectare of seed, which is 100 kgs. So if we're going then to under-apply, it means we are not going to get the desired result. Where we are going to get an additional tonnage of about 1.5, we are now getting about 500 kgs at the expense of us getting an extra ton. So it's important for us to make sure that we do things the right way. So if you're going to under-apply, you'll be shooting yourself in the foot because you are not going to get the desired result. So dear farmers, please, no shortcuts. We need to do things the right way.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I can never emphasize the importance of doing things properly. On that note, we're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness. We are here in the third and final segment of your program. Now, from inoculation that we were being educated on by Wendy Matashu Madzura, now we are in the field. We now have our tractor and the planter, and the seed has been placed in the hoppers. At this point in time, we are going to be talking of the planting process and the establishment of soybeans. I've taken the liberty of inviting Kumbirai Chinyemba. He is the managing director here at Danchi Farm in Glendale. Kumbirai, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Wazanai.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, Kumbirai, I would like you to highlight maybe on how, a brief background on how you prepared your land for soybean. I understand that there's been a crop prior to this one, prior to land preparation. Take us through that in a snippet.
Thank you, Wazanai. Our previous crop was wheat. So, when we want to prepare the land, we first burn the wheat residue. Then we put in our disc just to smoothen the soil.
Okay.
Yeah. Then after that, we do the inoculation process on the soybeans. Then we put it into the planter. Right now we are using a seed drill.
Okay.
Then we after that process, the seed root then comes to the field. Then you are now ready to plant.
Okay, thank you so much, Kumbirai. I would like you to talk of the various inputs that you are using, that you are incorporating when establishing your soybean. What are the fertilizers that you are using? Maybe the insecticides, maybe the herbicides, the chemicals that you are using in planting your soybeans.
When I'm planting my soybeans, I don't use any basal fertilizer, because I use the residue fertilizer left from the wheat.
Okay.
Then and again, that is the reason why I inoculate my soybeans, so that the rhizobium will get the nitrogen fixing process for me. It's very advantageous, and it's very cost effective when it comes to cost. Yeah.
Maybe the chemicals now, can you highlight on the herbicides that you are using? Because you understand that weeds can be a nuisance in crop management or crop production in Zimbabwe. That's why most of our Zimbabwean farmers end up having a love-hate relationship with cropping. Can you maybe take us through the herbicides, those that you use specifically for soybean production?
For soybean production, I use two kinds of herbicides on pre. Why? Because that way I can handle most of my weeds at the pre stages. Okay. Then after that, we then use Agio for the volunteer wheat.
Okay.
Yeah, and some different kinds of herbicides like Classic, Imazamax, Imaza Thepai and stuff. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Kumbirai. You spoke of the various inputs, fertilizers, and even chemicals that you use. Can you talk to our farming community there at home in terms of using or buying or purchasing their inputs from reputable institutions?
It's very important for farmers to use reputable seed sources and herbicide sources, because those seeds will be certified seeds, and then the herbicides will be original herbicides, not those fake herbicides usually which are being sold on the black market. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kumbirai, pama kudyara kudai so ndezvipi zvaunotarisa kuensure kuti soybeans sure yatodyarwa in a week or so tiri kuona germination, sure driver nevangashanda navo vatoita basa. Semurimi, sevaridzi vepano, ndezvipi zvamunotarisa kuona kuti chokwadi basa raitwa? Hamungoti here kana tractor rauya kuno makunoita galavant samwe makunotandara muri samwe. Zvakamira sei pakumaneja pakudyarwa kwesoya beans?
Wadza zvinonzi zvoni the best form of fertilizer is the farmer's food. Saka andibve mumunda kana tatanga process yekudyara kusvika process even yekuharvesta, because this is the business for me.
Okay.
This is a really business. So ndopane mari yangu yese ipapo, ndopandinotoswirawo ndiri. I cannot do two kinds of business at once. Kuti panapa ndiri kumunda, that time ndaenda kunoita coffee handikwanise kudaro. Ndotoswira ndiri mumunda, making sure that every seed yapinda panzvimbo yayo, the spacing iripo, seed yandapakomana iri kudyarwa here. Yes.
Okay. Finally, Kumbirai, I would like you to talk to our farming community. Taakupinda mumwaka wekurima nguva yatinogadzira mari sevarimi. Mashoko ako ekurudziro tichiparadzana muchirongwa kune varimi maererano nekurimwa kwesoya beans. Tichipendera chirongwa.
Wadza kune varimi tinoti zvoni. Ngatikurumbidzei kudyara, ngatizive seed yekudyara, ende ngatifambe nehama dzedu zvakanaka dzinenge mabhengi, zesa, zinwa zvakangodaro chete hapana chinomboshupa pakudyara.
Thank you so much, Kumbirai. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you very much, Watsanai.
There you heard it, viewers. We are here in Glendale looking at soybean production. We started off with soybean seed inoculation, and now we're standing in front of a field where we're going to be witnessing the planting of soybean. From me, your host, Wadzanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's W Manyore. And the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.